Yeah, so my name is Michael Browne, I'm 62 years of age. I work in a Manchester studio in Grit. I've been working as a fine artist all my life since probably the age of 5, from schooling all the way through secondary school, and that's where I was guided and where my interests were. This is partly because of my background and the adversity of living in Moss Side, and the family history sort of pointed me towards expressing myself in an artistic way, and using that as a driving force for whatever I've come across in my work as I've got older, through college system, through with galleries, and independently as an artist. My mother was unfortunately a single parent family, just me and her. She was out a lot, looking for a life and boozing and things, and I was on my own, quite a lot on my own in the house. So I was occupying myself with artwork, I was left to my own devices. So I was busy making things, creating things, and it's never stopped. And through all the turmoil that was going on in this kind of area in human Moss Side, was that when a kid in the mid-60s and early 70s, I had a one-man exhibition when I was 19 years of age at the Gano Gallery that lasted 3 years, year after year, in Manchester, because they liked the kind of work I was doing, which was very emotive and. So anyway, I carried on, but then I did a restaurant owner who knew me and sort of said, would you like to paint a Sistine Chapel project on our ceiling? Well, we didn't say Sistine Chapel at the time, so we've got a huge ceiling here, 2,000 square foot kind of area. Can you do it? I says, yeah, I'll do it. So because I was into bold, expressive artworks and wanted to be, get out there. So I started this painting. We agreed on Sistine Chapel copy, which I did, took me 2 years to do. Paid very little on it, unfortunately, but it kind of got, again, world recognition. It brought in a lot of attention on this one. So I wanted to paint Eric Cantona, basically, and being a United fan, and then I saw, well, I didn't see him, I wrote him a letter asking if I could paint, do a painting. I had an idea in mind of Saint Sebastian, because this is after the Kung Fu kick and the persecuted figure. And apparently, I got a letter from me back in return from his wife, sort of saying, Eric's not interested in this, but thank you for writing anyway. And then I just pursued it. I got a backer who funded me to get the painting underway. I got premises which were Barca in Castlefield, which was part owned by Mick Hucknall, and I spent 10 months doing that. But as I started it, right at the beginning, Eric snuck in 10 AM in the morning having a look, before 10 o'clock, sat in the distance watching me. I thought, that's Eric. So I looked around and he saw me starting this painting of him, and he came over, invited him over, says, would you like to look at the painting, and let me know what you think. And he came over, and then he said his dad was an artist, and he sort of said, I love the work, I like what you're doing, it's an interesting situation. And I think he'd seen me Sistine Chapel work as well previously. And so I sort of said, would you be interested in posing for the painting? Now you can see what it is, and this is a resurrection theme instead with younger players in there. And he sort of says, yeah, that'd be great. He will do it. And he came back 2 weeks later and we did took some poses upstairs in the VIP area, hands, feet. I had an image of him stood with foot on a chair, holding a sweeping brush handle. So it was looking like, he was holding the pennant. Because I like Renaissance art, but then he went into sports, connected into sports, into football, and then it's gradually been broadening out into, other fields, more political fields, as I've gone on over the years. And that's where it's at, really, is ethics, conscience, human conscience, political arenas, human rights, but regurgitating old historical elements in biblical art and Renaissance art and redefining them into a modern context, so it kind of keeps up with my draftsmanship. I don't discard that. Keeps up with the narrative of history, but gives it a modern face. Injustice is a hypocrisy, and I can't resist. Whenever I see a contradiction in an artwork, I'll take it, and I'll use and I'll highlight these things. And I'm very good at preempting or getting ahead of ideas and what's coming on in the media. Like, I've got an image of Donald Trump, which I did it with Putin and with a Chinese nation identity. And it was first of all shown in a painting in the museum as a huge eye based on the Panthers movements, but I use my own design of this eye with this wreckage, the ocean of trash, and all the wreckage in nature, but with these three puppeteers of Trump, Putin and Jinping, as if they were like orchestrating the destruction of through greed, calling it national identity, but the greed of growth. It was like you holding holding nature and climate to ransom in that regard, and the people who were kind of like trapped in and overwhelmed and bewildered by all this crap and trash that they're surrounded by and buried in, while the people who are secure, they're just, you know, continue to puppeteer regardless of what's going wrong, because they're at this pyramid of competition where those at the base of the pyramid are struggling, and it's all that inequality, and that's triggered by Moss Side and background and suppression as a child, and you kind of, it doesn't leave your mind, and you're just sort of looking up, and you're looking at those who have and those who've got privilege and those who walk through doors very easily, and it's this pyramidical alpha approach that I kind of has got my goat, you might say, and so as a consequence you can see the impact of it. And so I use the biblical references to show the transplanting the old ideas and the old ideologies with the realities today, more up to date of how it actually is now. And these are never-ending, eternal, supposedly eternal religious themes that pass through generations. But I'm showing how, you know, it's manifesting itself today, even with the references to the truth of the past. It's referencing itself with a very ugly appearance. You can either be subservient and perform a service and do nice cats and dogs and landscapes for people, which is your choice, and you're living if you want to. But some artists who've got, from certain backgrounds, have got things that they've got stuck in the mind and emotions and feelings that there's an unfairness going on, and that's one way to get these things out. And 4 a year please, 10 a year please, get 10 paintings done like that. Don't change who you are, that's what people are buying. But I think, you know, artists kind of, you know, would like to keep on evolving. Lad from Moss Side, man from Moss Side, royal family, totally different backgrounds, totally diverse, but let's kind of pull in the similarities and pull in the northwestern struggles of from the Peterloo massacre, from the workers from Angel Meadow, from the poverty, while the landowners and the big businessmen were raking in the cash to you know, make the money off the meagre, who were catching all sorts of diseases from the water, from the rats and from the area they live in, while, you know, slavery is helping them profit from abroad, and the mills are helping them profit here, and no votes, and as a means of kind of propping up the big wealth in the castles. And you get these rich people who are kind of, they love to come to the city to make the money, but then they'll wander off into the countryside to the villages, begging for England to be the way it was, and to not change. But what you reap is what you sow. So what is around today, the look of the country today, is as a result of what was being sown and coerced and manipulated centuries ago. And that's just what I've painted, the visualization of that transition of, you know, and it's like, what else would you expect? So the painting is 8.5 foot by 6.5 foot, oil on canvas. It's taken, I worked on it for around a year while doing other projects as well, but there's something like, well, 50 odd portraits in the painting of different characters. And what we've got is this theme of the past on one side, with all the royal heritage and the involvement with slavery and the investments in it, and the Royal Africa Company, etc., and colonisation through trade initially, and then in the past, and then it transfers to the other side of the painting, to the modern state of affairs with modern politicians of all nations. It's all set on a ship. I use HMS Victory because of the model of Britannia, British Empire, and, you know, feats around the world, etc., and battles. But then we've got it turning into, you know, we have the East India Company with their traffic, sea traffic for business and trade, but then they brought in their own army, which is as big as a British army at the time, to colonise India, employing lots of Indian soldiers and turning against their own, you know, population. And it's all this kind of take on it, you know, about the way the government have been twisting different nations through the maritime power to get what they want. So the setting is on the boat, but this is like a shrunken empire now. So we've got, you know, everyone on this boat, the sails are off, you know, no sails on, and and all these people all around, gathered around a young, the future king. We've also got images of some of the bishops who've were involved in slavery and profiting out of it with the churches, centuries ago. One or two weren't as keen on the slavery, but some were, trying to justify it because it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. And so we had this treatment of all these characters throughout history, and then we even got George V there when it all started to fall apart, when the Commonwealth was breaking up, the empire was breaking up, it was all shrinking, and that kind of short term, a lot of things changed in the UK. A slight focus on the Peterloo people and the workman, the white worker who had no rights. And it's just big triangulation of labour and goods. And then you have, on the other hand, you got African slaves who were, part of the West Indies slave trade and goods that way. And we've got the East India Company, part of importing goods from East India in the trade. Then you got it all tied in with the locals here, the Peterloo people, massacre people, etc. And the local landowners who had no money but were like, no votes and were being screwed for taxes, etc. So it's a kind of three-way build-up, and with Manchester being the centre of the Industrial Revolution, this area, the mills, etc., you can see where all the thing was, how it was all built up, and you can see why me, as someone from Moss Side, would be planted right in the middle of it, even as a mixed race guy and kid, would see this with a bit of time, age and experience. You kind of piece together what was going on. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. I've planned the painting for quite a while, and what we're doing is there's going to be an event at the museum on the 12th of March onwards, 13th of March to the Sunday, just for 4 days after the opening night, where people can take a detour to look at the painting, especially that being placed on exhibition there for a few days. And you can see it as it is, and there's going to be lots of literature around it, some artifacts, there'll be display cabinets with some of my history. So there's kind of lots to look at, lots to learn and read about, which is great for all ranges of people from all backgrounds, and to question, about royal legacy, etc., and what it is to be, for a young, an upcoming king to rule today, to be in his role today, what he stands for, how he will modify the behaviour of the royal family in the context of multiculturalism. So yeah, the exhibition can discuss all these things, and lots of narrative got displayed by the museum as well to help with this, to get a clearer visualization. And it all comes from a local perspective as well. I'm local artist, so, and it travels. This is kind of thing that will hopefully get some media and reach ears all over the place, that people can have a point of view from other places on the subject.